Alrighty, welcome back to Galatians chapter 3. In our last segment, we covered quite thoroughly Galatians 3 and verse number 6. Just as Abraham believed God, and it was reckoned to him as righteousness. And so there's the clear example set in the early pages of the Old Testament, the formula, as it were, for salvation by grace through faith, and not by, some ritual or some outward thing like circumcision. And that's going to be addressed even to a greater degree later on. So then we come to the next verse, verse 7 of Galatians 3. Therefore, be sure that it is those who are of faith who are the sons of Abraham. And that's a little bit of a dig at the Jewish teachers who were telling the Gentiles that, you've got to become like us and be circumcised and start doing all the ritualistic, unique requirements of the law of Moses in order to be saved, because we are the sons of Abraham. We are actual physical descendants of Abraham, unlike you Gentiles. And so you need to listen to us, the descendants of Abraham. And so a little dig by the Apostle Paul here. He's saying, really, those guys might be saying that they're the sons of Abraham, but it's really those who follow in Abraham's footsteps. Abraham, he didn't get saved by getting circumcised. In fact, he was declared righteous before he was circumcised. And he didn't become righteous by keeping the rituals of the law of Moses. There was no law of Moses yet, okay? And so if you say, well, I'm a son of Abraham, I'm a descendant of Abraham, just because based on the physical lineage, and you can trace yourself back to him. But you're not following the example set by Abraham. In fact, you're contrary. You're teaching a contrary method to salvation than what Abraham experienced and what is recorded in Scripture. You're not near as much a son of Abraham as somebody who follows in his footsteps and imitates his example and believes as he did, okay? And so that makes you much more connected to Abraham than the actual physical descendants of Abraham are. You got that? Okay, so again, Paul is not saying that just because you have faith and suddenly you miraculously become, a physical descendant of Abraham. No, that's obviously not what he's saying. He's saying you're following in his footsteps. He is your true leader because you're looking at his example and you're imitating that good example. Okay, verse number 8. The Scripture, foreseeing that God would justify the Gentiles by faith. And that's the whole deal here, right? That's how Gentiles get justified, just the same way Abraham got justified by faith. Preached the gospel beforehand to Abraham, saying, catch this, all the nations will be blessed in you. Now, every word in that promise that God made to Abram when he first called him, as recorded in Genesis chapter 12. All the nations will be blessed in you. Every word there, I would say, has some significance, okay? He didn't say, those who proceed from your loins, your progeny will be blessed. No. This is actually, it seems almost contradictory here. All the nations, and literally, more literally, it's not talking about political, geopolitical nations, all the families, all the tribes, all the ethnic groups, all those other folk out there who, you're not related to except through Adam and through Noah, right? But after that, a lot of families began, and Abraham doesn't, have direct relationship with them as if he descended from them. So he's saying to Abraham, all the nations, all the ethnic groups, and this is, looking towards the future, all of those future ethnics. So all of the descendants of all these other folk around you who, again, can all trace themselves back to Noah one way or the other and to Adam, but all these folks, all their descendants, those who are outside your direct lineage, they will be blessed. And then here's the interesting phrase, in you. So how can we get in Abraham? Well, you can see how that ties in, in an interesting way with what Paul has just said, that those who are of faith are sons of Abraham. And so he's connecting everyone who believes like Abraham did to within his spiritual progeny, his spiritual lineage and heritage, as it were. And so here it is again now. All the nations will be blessed in you. So although Paul doesn't elaborate on this, again, I'm trying to elaborate on it for us. It does raise the question, it begs the question, how can all the nations be in Abraham? Obviously, they can't physically. That would be a complete impossibility. It's just no way that people who are not direct physical descendants of Abraham can become his direct physical descendants. So how do you get in him? The only way to get in him is, through imitating him and identifying with him and following him as a son would follow his father. And that's how you get in Abraham. And so in verse number 9, Paul says, so then those who are of faith are blessed with Abraham, the believer. That's how you get into, relating to that promise that God made to Abraham. How do you get in Abraham? You've got to have faith. And again, as I said before, this is a little bit of an assault, I think, against the false teachers who were Jews, believing Jews apparently, who were basing their authority on the fact that they were physical descendants of Abraham. And so Paul is kind of setting them straight there. Okay, so that's a great argument. And, Paul is appealing to the Jewish scriptures themselves. Nobody can argue how Abraham got saved. This is the only way anyone can be saved, Jew or Gentile. Okay, can't wait to get together, talk more about this. I'll see you next time.
HeavenWord 7 is made possible by the financial support of viewers like you. Thank you.